Today's topic, just breathe. Hi, I'm Doug Holt, author of Your Own Story, and this is your Daily Growth Hack, where each day we give you a tip, trick, or insight to help you up-level what we call the 5 to thrive. That is your mind, your body, your soul, your relationships, and your business. I had a great conversation with a coaching client of mine this morning, and what came up was something that comes up often. Now, it can come up in interpersonal relationships most often, and that's the idea of getting triggered, right? When you get triggered or you get stressed or you get anxious, and oftentimes this happens with people that we're the most close to because they know our buttons and we let them in a little bit more. But when I talk about a trigger, what I'm talking about is that pattern that happens where somebody says something to you. They act in a way that you don't like or a way that triggers a response. You've lost control. It's a knee-jerk reaction. Now, we all do this, right? I know I do this on a daily basis, and it's been my practice probably for the last 5 years or so of identifying my triggers, recognizing them, and being able to either stop them or get out right away. Now, this hasn't come naturally. It certainly didn't come right away. This was a practice, and a practice that I put in place about 5 years ago that took me several years in my relationship with my wife and with my family and with those closest to me and my employees to really hone down. Now it's actually the knee-jerk reaction the other way. Immediately when it's something that would trigger me, I've taught myself to recognize that and then get grounded. And actually what happens is nothing happens. Nothing happens to me except for me being more grounded and relaxing. And that allows the other person to do the same thing. Whereas typically in a relationship, someone would say something. I'll use my wife as an example. She might say something to me, and how many of you can relate to this? I would get triggered and say, well, no, that's not what it is. And then she would get, oh, well, yeah, and it would escalate, right? She would get bigger, more aggressive. I would get even bigger. And nothing was physical or physical confrontation, but both of us felt tension in our shoulders, and she was coming at me with more masculine energy, so to speak. And I was, as a guy, and especially as someone who's been playing competitive sports his whole life, if somebody comes to me in a competitive nature, it's natural for me to kind of rise up to that challenge. I actually enjoy it. But in these cases, I didn't, right? And it escalated, and both of us had lost complete control. We didn't have control anymore. At the end, oftentimes we were so heated, we'd walk away. One of us would walk out, or whatever it would be. She was wrong, and she would be saying the same thing about me, of course. And we wouldn't, it would take a lot of pride, and our love brought us back each and every time. But, how many times does this happen to you on a daily basis? Your day is going through, someone just says one little thing, and maybe you take it out of context, or maybe you don't. Maybe they meant it, and it just triggers you and ruins your whole day, or gets you upset, or reminds you of the past, and you just come off in this knee-jerk reaction. We all do it, right? So what's one way that you can actually combat this? And this is what I taught myself, is simply to breathe. I recommend 10 breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. And if I'm doing this in front of somebody, actually, I'll just breathe internally. And I've gotten to another stage, but this is the first stage, is just the breath. And I'm happy to have a conversation with you if you want to know the rest of the stages of this progression. But this is what I was telling my client. He was in a situation where he was getting triggered regularly, and the escalation and stacking of those triggers was happening, and it was blowing up the relationships around him, one relationship in particular. And then we talked about the idea of breathing, and it clicked for him. He just totally knew that's what he needed to do. But of course, in the moment, you're triggered, and how do you do this? And I'm going to tell you what I told him. Now, I don't go to the gym in one day, and you don't either, and just expect to lose 10 pounds or to gain 10 pounds of muscle in one workout. No, it's practice. You do it over and over again until it becomes natural. Like riding a bike or any other skill that you've learned. If you've learned a foreign language, it takes repetition and practice and continual practice. So one thing you can do right here, right now, if you're not driving, is grab your smartphone. If you have a smartphone, you can use other timers as well, and set a series of alarms. Now, I recommend a minimum of 5 alarms throughout the day. And during these 5 alarms, I want you to have a distinct ringtone, if that's possible, on your phone, that one that reminds you to breathe, right? It could be a chime or something relaxing is what I like, but something that's going to catch your attention. And then I want you to name that alarm if you have the ability to do that. You do in most Android and iPhone devices. Name that alarm, just breathe. What that's going to get you in the habit of is breathing, and more conscious breath. So next time that person, and let's just say it's a significant other or a staff member or an employee of yours, triggers you, just remember to breathe. Take about 10 breaths. And what's going to happen, you're going to notice, is if you're just breathing and they feel you kind of relaxing and listening to them, odds are, it doesn't always happen, but odds are they're going to calm down too. And you're now creating the space in a level playing field where they can get out what they want to. And a lot of times they're like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off on you. And they'll start apologizing. It's amazing. Now, you will be tested by these people, right? They don't know if this is the real you. Is this the real you that always used to get triggered and now all of a sudden isn't? Or is this a creation of something you're just trying out? Now, of course, you are trying this out. But over repetition, this becomes you. This becomes the new you, when it's around family or anything else. Now, some people often ask me, well, Doug, what if he or she is wrong? Or what if they're accusing me of something? What if they told me I did something, wrong and I just didn't do it? That's a common thing in relationships, right? They said I did X, Y, and I didn't do any of that. So what I would say to you is, if I right now looked at you and said, you're purple, you would be like, what are you talking about? I'm not purple. And you'd probably chuckle and laugh it off and think I'm crazy. Well, the reason you get triggered, I'm going to invite you to think about this. The reason you get triggered is you believe what they're saying is true. If you didn't believe what they were saying is true, like being called purple, you're not purple, right? You just know it. Now, I don't know what ethnicity or what your skin color is, but it's probably not purple. And so you just brush it off. However, if I said something specifically, like looking at myself and I said, oh, you're way too white, and I am, I live by the beach almost my whole life and I just don't tan, that could trigger me. In the past, it used to make me feel sad. Like, oh man, I am too white, or whatever it may be. And it's funny, it's laughable for me now, but as a young kid, my friends would go to the beach, get tan, they were surfers, and I would be this kid that always got burnt, right? But these triggers can go deeper into emotional concepts, right? So things like you're a jerk, I don't like you, whatever it is. If you internalize them and you believe what that person is saying about you, then you can get triggered. Now again, all you have to do is someone's like, hey, they're going at you, like, you're a jerk, you're always late, you're doing this, you never do the dishes, you never take out the trash, whatever it is for you. You take a deep breath and just know something's occurring for them. It has nothing to do with you. It really doesn't. Something's going on in their world, right? And if you just take a breath, it allows them to calm down, and then most likely they're going to go, look, I'm sorry. And you can have an intelligent conversation of like, is this really bothering you? Is this the real issue that we need to address? And that allows them to relax because you're standing in what I call your power, right? You're in your power center. You're confident in yourself and loving yourself. Now, this is only step one, but it is a deep step. And it's one that you want to practice. So set your alarms, right? And then I also invite you to grab your journal and grab your 5 to Thrive and write out what your triggers are. Because the next step is identifying the triggers, right? You need to know what your triggers are in order to identify them and put this into a practice. Like a doctor has a practice. A doctor isn't just an expert. They call it a practice because you're always doing stuff, you're always learning. And this is the same for you when it comes to triggers. Now, I know this is a longer daily growth hack, but we do a deep dive in this in the Author of Your Own Story University, just like I do a deep dive with my personal coaching clients that I work with one-on-one. So I invite you to go over to the Author of Your Own Story website and make sure you get on that waiting list for the Author of Your Own Story University. So when we open it up, we have additional slots, you have the opportunity to make a choice of going in rather than rushing in all these people that email me and contact me, can I get in, can I get in? The answer is probably no. Right? So unless you get on that waiting list, unless you sign up, we want to make sure those people that have already taken action are getting priority seating, so to speak, and that you can have deeper dives and deeper conversations like this. That's it for me today. Go out and inspire somebody by being the author of your own story, and inspire them by being in your power, by breathing during confrontation. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed today's Daily Growth Hacks. Please put your comments right down below and remember to click subscribe. This way we can ensure that we're delivering these daily growth hacks right to you each and every day. On behalf of the whole team here, remember, go out and be the author of your own story.